Hello, my name is Carol May Whittick. I support women to bloom in midlife with creativity and spiritual life coaching. I'm your host of Her Conversations, Tools for the Awakening. Her is an acronym for Higher Energetic Resonance. This is the optimal state to embody in order to attract our highest desires. What is the awakening? This is the moment in time when humanity rises up out of the darkness. Who is awakening? Each one of us present on earth today, reclaiming our sovereignty, seeking greater possibilities in our reality and looking for solutions. We know being awakened is not a lofty ideal but a necessity. If we can transform ourselves, we can change the world. Guests on Her Conversations will speak to your spirituality, sensuality and soul. Listen to their stories and hear how they are in service to the world. Let their words and these conversations embolden and inspire you. Before we dive in, if you're a midlife woman who knows there is more for you to embody and create, I work with women who sense they are on the brink of an awakening and inspired to live a bigger life. And my Bloom into Midlife program could be the next step for you. So I'm inviting you if you feel called to a connection call, and the link to schedule your chat is in the show notes below. My guest this week is Suzanne Roynon, an interiors therapy expert and member of International Feng Shui Guild. She's also the author of award-winning bestseller Welcome Home: How Stuff Makes or Breaks Your Relationship, and featured expert on many national and international media and online organisations. During our conversation, Suzanne shares how hoarding possessions, living in chaos and clutter can actively harm our relationships, health, wealth, success and happiness. She also gives us tips on how to create a home and office space to love and propel you forward. So as always, I begin by asking my guest. Her is an acronym for Higher Energetic Resonance. When do you feel that higher energetic resonance?
Well, Carol, I feel a higher energetic resonance when I'm working on uplifting the energy of a home, either with feng shui or with interiors therapy, because understanding how I can help the occupants improve and enjoy the energy of their home, and that then leads into their lives. And I just find that so inspirational, and it just, it feeds me as I'm helping them feed themselves, so it's really great for me.
Perfect answer. Thank you very much. And before we go into the conversation, can you just share how you got into doing the work that you're doing today anyway?
Well, about 1,000,000 years ago, well, probably closer to 40 years, but when life moves on, I moved into a home with my then husband, and we'd had an incredibly happy life until then. We moved into this home and everything started going horribly wrong with our health, with our income. It was as though the rug had been pulled out from under us. And so I started investigating feng shui because I knew the only thing that had changed was our location. So I started investigating feng shui and I experimented with it a little. And then I started training and we did some things and it improved for a while. But truth be known, it had probably gone too far and we went our separate ways. But what I did notice is that when I used feng shui further along the line, helping my friends with it, helping family members with it, things got better. And when I combined that with looking at clutter and how that was impacting on people's lives, and it's kind of grown, over the last 35, 40 years, until about 8 years ago, I thought, no, enough of this 9 to 5. I can help more people if I am teaching them about their feng shui and about their interiors therapy and actively doing it with them, almost holding their hands to take them step by step through the process and seeing the transformation that makes for people. Even people who, for example, my brother, who totally poo-pooed the whole thing until I happened to be in the area. And he said, I'm going for this job. I'm really the underdog for this job. But what would you do? So I just did a little bit of work on his career area and he got that job. And it's really taken him places. But the interesting thing is that his wife was also called into her boss's office and given a promotion that same week that she hadn't even applied for.
Wow.
And at that point, he became something of a convert. And that's the thing, you don't need to believe it. You just need to allow it to happen. And I think that's the same with so many things in life, isn't it? If you just allow, if you just receive, then you make way for good stuff to come to you. So that's what I love to do and why I love to do it.
What a great story, and what a great way of helping someone else as well, starting with your family and them just seeing that magic happen within them. So can you just give a little bit more information about what it is, Feng Shui, what it is, where it comes from, and how it developed, what you know about the background of it and the reasons for its development?
For sure. Well, Feng Shui has been around for over 6,000 years. That's the first thing to say. The original compasses, we think about compasses now for shipping and navigation and our GPS. Those original compasses were created for Feng Shui. And I just find that absolutely fascinating. And it originated in the Far East. We associate it with China, but Japan, Indonesia, moving across to Nepal and into India. So a huge area of the world was using Feng Shui for a very, very long time. Now, fast forward to last century, when Chairman Mao and the Cultural Revolution arrived in China, suddenly Feng Shui and helping everybody wasn't very fashionable anymore, because Chairman Mao wanted to make sure that, he and his elite band had a little bit more luck than the average person. So all of the Feng Shui masters really sought to escape, and the obvious place for them to go was to the west coast of America. So San Francisco, Seattle, Portland, LA. Suddenly you've got these experts arriving in America and saying, hey, we can do this, to make you more fortunate, make your homes more auspicious. And the Americans went, what? Hang on a second. Now, the original Feng Shui, traditional Feng Shui, which is the practice I use now, needs compass directions. It needs you to understand how a home fits almost into space and time. It's a bit like Doctor Who, really. When was it built? Where was it built? Which direction was it facing? What's around it? All of these things come into play when we're looking at the Feng Shui of a place. And so these masters would go along, and suddenly the people that they were working with saw this big upturn in their fortune and their luck. Fantastic, brilliant, lovely. But then, of course, everybody else wanted that, but they couldn't quite afford it because, having an expert on your doorstep, even back then would have probably cost you $10,000. Very different now, but, that was the score. But essentially, Feng Shui got sort of tweaked and trimmed a little bit. It was created into a DIY format, which is very simple, and it gives you the basic idea, and it works a lot with intention. Now, we know how much affirmation and intention can make a difference to people's lives, but with homes and Feng Shui, it will take you so far. But then what I discovered when Feng Shui suddenly stopped working, when I moved into an apartment, is that if I went back to basics and I went back to traditional Feng Shui with the compass directions and all of those aspects that were missing from the DIY form, that it was like this supercharging of the whole thing. Suddenly I could absolutely understand what was going on in my life and how it related to the specific energy of the home. Get that sorted out. It's incredible. It really is like the top bursts off the box and all of those amazing streamers and sparkles fly out of it. Because you've now absolutely got on track working with your home rather than it working against you. And that's what is so magical about traditional Feng Shui. So yeah, it's come from beginnings over 6,000 years ago to people who are using it actively daily and living with it daily all over the world now.
So what's the nature of your work? How are you using it in your business and who are you serving with it?
Well, I have a huge variety of
Mhm.
clients and I work with people around the world. So it always starts for me with a 30-minute call, a video call, where somebody walks me around their home and I'll have a look and see what's going on. And I'll quite often tell them what's going on in their lives without them saying anything to me, or which that can be quite interesting. If I say, "Oh, I can see that you're very lonely," and they go, "Oh, but how do you know?"
Mm.
The home tells me. So once I know that I'm the right person to work with them, because that's very, very important, then I'll get some more information from them and I'll create a feng shui report, which they then implement with help from me. So they'll have a couple of hour-long sessions. We'll work on their home, we'll position their remedies, we'll make sure they understand what they're doing with their feng shui.
Mm.
And then that report package will last for 2 years. And then they all just keep coming back year after year for their updated report because they can see the difference it makes. And just as an example, I have a lady who's had a report for 4 years. And then this year she didn't renew. And I thought, well, that's odd. But I won't ever go chasing somebody. I absolutely respect their decisions. Anyway, the other morning I got up and there is an email from her saying, "I forgot to reorder my report. I'm so embarrassed. Ever since Feng Shui New Year," now that was last Tuesday, the 4th of February, "ever since Feng Shui New Year, everything has gone horribly wrong. We're having awful problems. Can I please get my report as soon as possible?" So just in a few days, she'd noticed the energy shift in her house into a way that wasn't supporting her because a report will, it's the feng shui year changes every year. So if you put feng shui in 15 years ago, that's no longer current.
Mm.
It changes just slightly each year. And this is why it's just so important to stay on top of it. And she's got her report now. I can turn them around quite quickly when there's an urgent situation like that. So she's actually implementing today just to make sure that everything's covered for her and her family.
Yeah, wow. And so you're sending these reports to your clients. How quickly, I mean, you said with your brother and his wife that it was almost like an instantaneous shift in their fortunes. What what kind of turnaround would most people expect to have if you were
Yeah,
to?
that varies. That really does vary. I mean, sometimes it's literally overnight.
Mm.
And I sit there with my mouth open the next day when I read a message or I get a call and I'm flabbergasted because I would normally say 6 to 8 weeks. Once everything's been allowed to settle,
Mm. Mm.
you will see the changes. There was a lady a couple of weeks ago who finally got around to doing something that I had suggested 18 months ago.
Right.
Finally got around to it. And this was on Friday morning. Friday night, they had a huge lottery win.
Wow.
The following Monday, her husband gets a promotion.
Mm.
And it's just like these little things. And, of course, I can't promise everybody's going to win the lottery or, the love of their life will come galloping towards them on a white charger. What I can say is it seems to get a darn sight easier to get unexpected windfalls, meet the right people, find opportunities, turn life into the direction you want it to be going in
Mm.
if you have your feng shui done.
Mm. And
So,
and my mind is going, so what is it that you're moving or opening up or activating when you're sending these reports?
well, the reports will explain how a house is divided or an apartment is divided, and feng shui will divide it into 9 areas. Now, this is called the bagua. It's like an energy map of your home. And each of those 9 areas relates to a different part of your life. And it might be useful, if you don't mind, Carol, if I just explain what each of those areas is. Would that be all right?
Yeah, for sure.
So if you imagine a noughts and crosses board, So you've got 9 equal areas. The center of that board relates to your health and your well-being. So if the center of your home is nice and clear, then in all likelihood you will be okay with your health, and any little niggles will be sorted quite quickly. But if you've got a load of clutter in the center of your home, you might well find that you struggle with your health. You get congestion, you have all sorts of little niggly things with your health if the center isn't sorted. Now, then we go round as a compass. So the north relates to your career and your life path. The northeast is about knowledge, learning, spirituality. It's a really great place to have a meditation area if that's what you like to do. Then the east is about the family, but it's also about the past. So if you have photographs of your parents or grandparents and they're no longer with us, and you want to have them on display, then you would definitely put those in the east. The southeast is one of the areas that everybody loves to get right because that's about money. It's about money and wealth and abundance. But you have to remember that abundance comes in all sorts of forms. So, if you've got an apple tree and you've got abundance, then that's a lot of apples rather than money flowing into your bank account. You take abundance in whatever way it comes to you. The South is about fame and your reputation. So this is how the world sees you. And that might be just your community. You might be known because you are, really, really great about reminding people when something's going on or raising money for a particular charity. Or you might be on Britain's Got Talent, all kinds of things. It's where your fame and reputation takes you. Southwest is the next one that everybody wants to get right because that's about relationships, not just with a significant other, but also with yourself. And when I'm working with my single clients who would like to be coupled up clients, the first thing I'll say is you work on yourself, because until you love you for exactly the person you are, then you're not going to meet the person who is going to support, inspire. No, those aren't the right words. It's to match you, because you've got to have a balanced relationship if it's going to thrive. The next place is the West. That's about new beginnings, opportunities, and children. So if you're looking to start a family, we activate the West. The Northwest, I've got to tell you, it's the last of these, and it's my favorite because it's about travel and helpful friends. So travel does what it says on the tin. The helpful friends are not the people that you head out for a drink with or party with. These are the ones who turn up when you need them. That might be the electrician who arrives when the lights have blown, or the plumber who arrives to fix the boiler. These are the helpful people who rock up at the point where you need them. Could even be somebody who stops to change your tire on a dark lane at night. So all of these areas, these 9 areas of your home, will respond in different ways. Sometimes you've got latent good energy in those areas, and sometimes you've got energy which frankly isn't very helpful. And so feng shui will balance those out. It will boost the good stuff. It will squish the bad stuff. And then you get to have balance and harmony in your life instead of that sort of constant roller coaster of good and bad and feast and famine, It's just nicely balancing it out.
Got it. And so what are you doing in these areas? Are you adding to? Are you taking away? Are you turning things to face? The basics that I've seen in little books about
that is such a good question. Yeah. So with traditional feng shui, we use elements in order to rebalance spaces in a home. I won't just say a room, because a room might have 2 or 3 of these areas, or it might just be a part of one area. So we use the elements. We use earth, which is very simple, stones or shells, something that comes from the earth. Fire, I love to work with because it's pure, it's color. So reds, fiery colors, cranberries, oranges, hot pinks, hot yellows. But you can find some really beautiful shades of fire colors that everyone can live with. I
Mm.
wouldn't want fire engine red in my home, but I love a bit of burgundy, you know?
Mm.
Um, metal is, that's what it says on the tin. It's metal, but it's weight of metal. So, having a couple of spoons there is not going to do the trick. But if you happen to keep the barbell weights there for when you're doing your exercises, then it's probably a good place for them. Wood is very simple. It's literally plants. You've got a wood remedy right behind you, as have I. We've just got these little wood remedies around us. And the last one is water. And the water needs to be moving 24/7. But it's as simple as that. But just as an FYI, I see in some, online groups, Facebook groups, particularly for feng shui, you'll get somebody who says to you, "Oh, put water in the north. That's going to bring you success in your career." And I'm going to say right here and right now, do not do this because your home is unique. And maybe 20% of homes might benefit from having water in the north. But the other 80%, you can effectively wash out your career.
Mm.
But because that area also relates to a different part of your body, you can end up with all sorts of health problems as a result of this. So not only have your career's sailed away down the river and you're sitting there wondering where your next job's coming from, but your health's deteriorated so much. And I and a number of other feng shui consultants and spend an awful lot of time trying to help people get past the damage they've accidentally done by following generic advice. So I'll always say, don't ever put remedies in unless you know what you're doing, because it's better to have no remedy than the wrong remedy.
Mm.
But there are symbolic things that you can do. For example, if you wanted to enhance your love life, you might put a statuette of a couple in your southwest, or you might put a money pot in your southeast. For me, I have a globe in my northwest. And I was given this lovely new globe for Christmas, and it's one that works on light. So if there's light shining on it, it turns around all the time. I've been away from home more traveling since I put that globe into place than I have been at home. And to the point where actually I decided the other day that maybe I just need to put it away for a couple of days so that I can just rebalance and spend some time regrouping at home. Very powerful stuff when you activate it. But it always does help to know what you're doing.
You've told me the history of it, but the idea that these different compass points relate to different areas of life, how did that map align itself in that particular way? Do you know what I mean? Why was north that? Why did it work out that way?
Well, you'd have to ask those masters from 6,000 years ago. I think an awful lot of trial and error has happened. These masters developed something called a parquet compass, and this compass kind of had moving rings that they would move it around to represent, if the sun was here, well, they knew that was the west. So then they would say, right, well, this house has a mountain behind it here, and there's a valley in front of it. And then just, I think, trial and error.
Mm.
And, to a degree, we still use trial and error now. If I'm working out, if somebody doesn't know when their house was built or it's had some changes made to it, I'll understand what's going on in their life. And then I will compare that to the information that my feng shui almanac will give me about the house. So if they say to me, oh, yes, I know we had a burglary and then this happened with our daughter, and we've had problems with our lungs, I'll have a look at the house in this particular period. Was it developed in the 1960s? Right. Well, what does the 1960s say? No, there's nothing about robbery here. Okay, well, if it was 1970s when they had that extension done, oh yes, look, here we go. Problems with the lungs and heart. Okay, robbery, risk of injury. Oh yes, well, the daughter had that car accident. So that's all saying to me, right, okay, now I'm on the right track with this house. I can give them the precise remedies to rebalance the negativity and boost the positive stuff. So, but just as those masters centuries ago, millennia ago, were saying, right, okay, well, I noticed that this happened in this house and it faces the same direction of that house there. And interestingly, that happened there as well. That's really that's the only thing I can offer you to say, trial and error, watching it, developing it over the years. And of course, it's gone from very small houses in China to palaces in China or Tibet or India or Indonesia to high rises in Hong Kong, which are actually designed with feng shui in mind. You might have seen that there's a very big building which has a square cut out of it. It's a huge, huge skyscraper. And that square is to allow the dragon energy to fly from the hills above Hong Kong down across the sea. And when they built this building, or they're planning this building, the feng shui masters said, no, you're going to block an important energy path through the town, through the city. So you just need to make sure that there's a gap. And that's how it was built.
We spoke as well, I think, when we were prior talking about midlife, telling you that I coach midlife women. And so I always like to touch on how the guest's wisdom can relate to the stage of life that they're in. And if I think of a lot of the things that midlife women are going through is empty nesting, sometimes changing, shifting relationships are, what do I say, completing themselves, as it were, really. They're changing their career, or they might be just downsizing, or all of those different things, as well as their own shift in their own energy and the change of their own perspective of their own life. How can feng shui in your work help them navigate those changes with ease, and what things can they do on maybe just a rookie level to assist the energy in their environment?
Well, this is where I think we could add in the layer of interiors therapy, which is basically decluttering on steroids. Because what happens, and I'm midlife too. We get to midlife and we're carrying an awful lot of stuff with us, not just emotionally, often physically, but in practical terms. We've got the stuff in our house that probably belongs to some of our kids. We've got stuff that belongs to our parents. We might be taking on responsibility for caring for our parents at the same time as caring for grandchildren, and we might still have teenagers and be in that situation. So interiors therapy would ask you to look at your environment, to look at the things around you and say, how is this serving me? And for an awful lot of ladies, I find that up there in the attic of their home, pressing down on them energetically, they have got so much stuff that is of absolutely no use to man nor beast, and especially not to that woman. But it is sitting up there. It might be suitcases from the 1970s that you can barely lift, let alone take on holiday with you. It might be school books from the kids that they have absolutely no interest in taking with them. And, here's an FYI, millennials, they travel light. They don't want all of those sentimental items that we've diligently collected for them in those special boxes. And, we think, oh, yes, they'll get their own home and we'll give them this this lovely box of their booties and their first school report, and they'll say, I haven't got room for that. I don't want that. I'm not interested. If you want it, mum, you keep it. So then mum puts it back in the attic and it weighs down on her some more. So look around you, look around your home and really be honest with yourself about the things that you have. Do you love them? Do you need them? Do you use them? If you happen to have inherited a parent's home, and actually what you've got around you is all the Royal Dalton ladies that your mother had, or the cricket bats that your father had, you don't like the Royal Dalton ladies, you hate dusting them, and you're never going to be playing cricket. Why have you got all this stuff? And I know that those are extreme examples, but if you look around you and there are things that aren't making you, well, let's go the Marie Kondo route. If they're not sparking joy for you, then at a subconscious level, they're bringing you down. And they're bringing you down just a tiny fraction every time you see them, even in your peripheral vision. Now, if you take those things out, if you sell them, donate them, gift them, whatever, and you create a clear space in your home, you've got room to think, you've got room to breathe, you've got room to be yourself and have the things around you that do serve you instead of the things that are hanging over you. And it's very, very interesting to see how many women, you get to menopausal age and they'll say, oh, yes, you'll put weight on in the menopause. But then I actually find that people do their interiors therapy possibly as a precursor to feng shui, possibly just to do the interiors therapy. They can work separately. And then really, without doing anything more than clearing their space, they suddenly find that they've dropped a stone. Not change the diet, not change the lifestyle. They just don't have everybody else's weight of stuff hanging over them. And stuff is very, very bad news in a home if it's stuff that you don't want.
So what's the recommendation? Just get rid or how to release from it? Because
how to release.
Sometimes getting rid of things isn't always as easy. There's a sense of attachment to stuff. I did a big sale, I'd say a couple of years ago as well, realizing there were certain things that were not going to be worn anymore, those sequined harem pants. I'd enjoyed them, but I couldn't imagine that there was going to be ever a time that I was really going to wear them, really. They worked for I had fun with them in my 20s, and I wore them a little bit in my 30s, and I kept them in my 40s because I didn't want to get rid of them. And then it was like, well, what am I doing with these, really? And someone else got, I'm sure, immense joy out of them, out of those things. And it was nice to kind of change those stuck items into cash, into currency that could then flow into something else, or sometimes just to have more cash to go and just have fun with, like for no other reason than I didn't have that thing anymore. And what I found as well, I got rid of a lot and it didn't even feel like anything had gone. It wasn't, which was very much telling about how much stuff that I had just over the years of collecting things, that one thing that got bought that was worn to that one occasion, or that thing that got bought that never got worn, all of those things that we collect around us. Really,
you're absolutely right. That whole releasing process, and you did exactly the right thing, starting with your wardrobe. And when I'm working with a client, unless my intuition says no, go somewhere else, we always start with the wardrobe, because the wardrobe is the place where you own that stuff and it's under your jurisdiction. If you share a home with other people, then everything else might be shared property, but the stuff in your wardrobe is yours. And you just embraces it so beautifully. The sequined harem pants, which were great in your 20s, wonderful. I've worked with ladies in their 60s who will open their wardrobes and show me tiny, weeny dresses that they wore them when they were 18. And I say, well, so why do you still have this? Oh, well, I thought that when I lose a little bit of weight, I could get into it. And I'll look at them and, I'll raise an eyebrow and I'll just say, but would this be the dress that you would choose to wear now? And they look at me as though I'm mad.
Mm.
And then the penny drops. And it's just like, okay, I'm 62. This cute little dress from the 1970s wouldn't suit me now. My body is a different shape. I'm not the stick that I was in 1977. Oh, and then, then they'll start to look at other things and think, well, I've got this much wardrobe space. I've got 2 meters of wardrobe space. And my coat hangers are so bent that they're kind of collapsing around one another. And I'm keeping all of this stuff that I will never actually wear again. So that's an easy win. But then you get to the stuff that is perfectly serviceable, but will they wear it? And I always find that, if somebody pulls out a dress and they say, oh, yes, I wore this on a date and it was really awful and he was vile. And, that's the first thing they think when they see that dress.
Mm.
That will always be the first thing they think when they see that dress. So again, that's an easy win. Let's take that out. But then you get to the tunic top that she was wearing when she first held her first grandchild. And you can see the love that is just glowing from her when she looks at that tunic. And that's an absolute stay. If it makes you feel that way, how incredible. I don't mind how long that stays there. But if the skirt that you wore to somebody's funeral and that's all you can think when you saw it, let that go. So once you've got the hang of doing this through your wardrobe, and then you deal with anything that's broken or damaged, are you going to fix it? No, let's let that go. And so you end up with what is in your wardrobe is stuff that you love to wear or you have to wear. Perhaps it's a uniform or something like that. You enjoy wearing it and it fits and it's in great condition. So whenever you get something out of your wardrobe, it is going to work for you. Now, if you then translate that to the rest of your home, you've gone through all of your t-shirts, your gym gear, your underwear. Let's get rid of all that grey, saggy underwear, ladies, shall we? Let's not keep that. We are better than that. Yes, it's absolutely fine to have big, comfortable pants. But let's make sure that they're big, comfortable pants that we wouldn't mind showing to the doctor if we had to go there and we wouldn't be embarrassed, And then let's look at what we've got on our windowsills, on our walls. If you're feeling very, very lonely, if you're isolated, if you feel that there is no support in your life, look around your home and in all likelihood, you've got images of single women or a single cat or a house all on its own or a penguin looking sad or an owl on a branch. They are all on their own.
Mm.
If you want to have that sense of support, balance, coupliness, change them for twos. Have matching lamps, have matching cushions on your bed. Little things that you can do to just change the energy around you. And it is fascinating. It's so fascinating to watch it happen and to do it yourself and to just go, oh, yeah, actually, now I look, I see that's a single thing there and that's a single thing there. I worked with a journalist and we counted in her home 71 single ladies. And she got rid of the single ladies. And the next time she contacted me, she wasn't single anymore.
Well, did she have lots of pictures of single women and that, or statuettes, or?
Well, yeah, and things that people had given her. She even had this incredible kimono, which was used as a display item.
Mm,
And it was a silk kimono, and somebody had painted this single lady onto the back of the kimono. And it was all very elegant, and it was very, it's sort of very expensive, really. The cards that she received from friends around her birthday would all be strong single women supping champagne, and or she had statues on the bookshelves and prints and mats for the table, and they were all very arty, all very extravagant, but all very single women.
mm, mm, mm.
And it wasn't until I actually stood with her and said, "Shall we count them?" And, right to the magnets on the fridge. And she's just like 71,
Wow.
71 reinforcements that I am on my own in this life. And I have got to deal with it on my own. Well, I am perfectly content being single myself right now. But I can tell you, sure as heck, everything in my apartment is balanced because I want to feel that balance. I want to feel that connection with myself
Mm,
as much as getting on with my friends and people that I like to invite into my life. Currently, I choose to be single, but it's because it suits my lifestyle. But I know that if I chose to change that, there are a couple of tweaks I'd make, and I could then say, yeah, okay, well, I will start being escorted out by lovely gentlemen. Thank you very much.
So, for anyone listening, what are maybe some just basic tweaks that they can do if they just want to, maybe not even for any particular reason, but to just lighten the energy or lift the energy, feel a little bit more awake and alive and inspired, and especially in the world, where we need our home to be a haven because things look so crazy out there. So what are the things that we can do so that we know when we come back to our home, we've created a bubble of safety.
Oh,
And
you are so right. We have to have a space which nurtures and supports and nourishes us.
Mm,
And if you're coming home in the evening and just stepping through the door brings you down, then your home isn't supporting you. So start with a great, big, massive declutter. And if you have decluttered previously and the clutter started coming back a couple of weeks later, well, I'm sorry, folks, you haven't done it right. You need to reframe your thinking about how you release stuff. And clutter isn't just the pile of takeaway containers in the cupboard that all falls out on you, or the pile of newspapers behind the door. Clutter can be something really, really expensive that you don't like, or you don't use, or is broken. So let's deal with all of that stuff. Once you've dealt with that, you will already start to feel lighter.
mm,
Now, you can check out a book, check out my website, find a feng shui bagua, and work out where those areas are in your house. Okay, I would really like to have a holiday. I haven't had a holiday for years. Right, let's go take a look at what's going on in your northwest. What art have you got there? What books have you got there? Is that inspiring travel, or is it, making you feel very, very stuck indeed? And then by using those elements of feng shui, by understanding those areas of your home, then you can tweak and enhance those spaces. Then, once you've done that, you could choose perhaps to do a space clearing ceremony. Now, I love a space clearing ceremony. I do them probably 4 or 5 times a year, certainly around the change of the seasons or at Feng Shui New Year, that'll happen. But if there's been a period of stress for whatever reason, or if I've had a house guest, house guests, you should only have like fish for 3 days, shouldn't you? And once they've been there a bit longer, they start to smell. Well, I will then, if a house guest has been around too long, I'll do a space clearing ceremony, because what that does is it lifts the air, it lifts the energy, it lightens the place. It feels so much brighter.
Mm.
And weirdly, it also feels bigger. And I cannot explain why that is. I just feel like the energy expands to just bring you more upliftment and more joy into your home. And that's the effect of a space clearing ceremony. And you can do that anytime you like. It's better if you don't have a pile of clutter about the place. But really, if you're feeling stuck, if you're feeling low or trapped, or as though nothing's going right for you, jump online, find a simple space clearing ceremony and do it for yourself, because it really will change the atmosphere around you.
Thank you for demystifying this. There's so much to it, and it's one of those things that you're like, well, why does that work? But then why does anything work really? And once you understand it, and especially to have you share, the background and the wisdom and the simple applications that can be done to change it. And I think deep down we all know that just having too much stuff around us anyway feels very heavy, and holding on to things just because of this kind of thing that might happen, or because we're afraid of letting it go, isn't really giving us room to let anything in,
Yeah,
really. Yeah.
you're right. People keep things for 5 reasons, in my experience. Habit, it's always been there. Fear, oh, I might not be able to get another one. Guilt, somebody gave this to me and I feel obliged to keep it. Confusion, I don't know what to do with this. And the last one, which is a really nasty negative one, is spite.
Mm.
And that's, I'm going to keep it because I don't want somebody else to have it.
Wow.
And, none of those are good reasons for keeping things that aren't serving or supporting you. But yeah, it's an amazing thing to do. And I do try and keep it very, very real for the people I work with. I'll explain it. Right, this is why we're doing it. You've got this particular nasty energy here. This is how you've experienced it. This is what we're going to do to put that right. And just, hold their hand every step of the way, because that's what I wanted when I first got involved, and I didn't have it. So when I started using my feng shui for clients as opposed to just my friends and family, it was just, no, you are going to get the service that I wanted and I deserved when I first got involved. And that's my attitude to everything, really.
Well, the way that you've shared has made it very, very clear and understandable. So I appreciate that. And can you share where people can contact you and find out more about your work and working with you?
For sure. So the easiest place to find me is via my website, which is interiors, with an S, interiourstherapy.com. If you search for Interiors Therapy on Facebook, you will find me. If you search for Suzanne Roynon, you will find me. You'll probably also find me if you just do a Google search, because there'll be articles from the various magazines. You'll see me on stage at the Ideal Home Show and at the Clean and Tidy Home Show. But the easiest thing to do is just, Google me, there I'll be, and drop me a message and I'll be right back to you.
Perfect. Fantastic. Thank you, Suzanne. Great conversation.
Thank you, Carol. It's been such a joy to be here with you.
Thank you, Suzanne, for sharing your wisdom with me, and thank you for listening. If you got value from this episode and think you know somebody who would benefit from the wisdom of my guests, please share the episode with them and also leave a review. You can find out more about me on my website. It's carolmaywhittick.com, CarolMaywhittick.com. Find me on LinkedIn and Facebook, Carol May Whittick, and on Instagram and Threads, Casmic, CAZMICK. Until the next episode, take care. Thank you. Bye-bye.